As American citizens are forced to pick up the slack due to FEMA's poor hurricane response, many can't help but wonder, is DEI to blame? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. The U.S. is getting hit back-to-back with hurricanes. First with Hurricane Helene, and now with Hurricane Milton. Hurricane Helene destroyed homes and left many with no way of communicating with the outside world. This has led to a lot of scrutiny over how FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has been handling disaster relief since Helene landed. And in particular, FEMA's prioritization of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, the focus on DEI over competency is being blamed on everything from causing up to half of UCLA med students to fail basic medical competency tests to hampering U.S. military readiness. So it's no wonder that many are warning FEMA's obsession with DEI is doing the same to disaster relief. But what does it mean for FEMA to have DEI? Does this mean they're going to prioritize disasters of color? Well, like most government agencies under the Biden administration, FEMA officials have made a big deal about DEI, especially when it comes to equity. Case in point, the 2022 to 2026 FEMA strategic plan puts equity as its first and foremost goal. You'd think emergency management would be at the top of that goal list. And if you do, you're a bigot.
We are instilling equity as a foundation of emergency management. Together, we will harness the power of diversity within our workforce, remove barriers to our programs, adopt new people-first approaches, and seek change that achieves equitable outcomes.
Okay, I get they're trying to be progressive, but focusing on skin color and saying things like harnessing the power of diversity in our workforce sounds like a euphemism for something else, doesn't it? Leading the charge on equity is none other than FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. She's been quite vocal about putting equity in the forefront of what her agency does.
I have 3 goals, and equity is one of my goals. To make sure that we can deliver emergency management services in an equitable way has been a priority.
Criswell also says we must recognize that disasters affect individuals and communities differently. They do? I had no idea nature was so racist. We should start calling those storms hurricanes. FEMA elaborates on this point by saying every disaster occurs within a unique context based on a community's geographic, demographic, political, historical, and cultural characteristics. These unique contexts require tailored solutions that are designed to meet their unique needs. Underserved communities, as well as specific identity groups, often suffer disproportionately from disasters. As a result, disasters worsen inequities already present in society. In other words, FEMA wants to eliminate disparities in outcomes based on group identity, which is a noble goal because heavy rains do affect certain groups more than others, like the poor, wicked witches. Does being green make her a person of color? Now, there is something to this idea. Black communities tend to be poorer, and if disaster strikes, they would have fewer resources to deal with it. But what FEMA is talking about is more than just identifying which places don't have enough resources to handle disasters. That might actually be useful. No, this involves prioritizing certain people, such as those who don't speak English as their first language, as well as those who identify as LGBTQ. Basically, anyone who isn't an English-speaking cisgendered white male. Because as we all know, the only thing cisgender white males in trailer homes that are destroyed by nature suffer from is too much damn privilege. And it's really not surprising FEMA thinks this way because they have been training staff to believe that white supremacy is ingrained in nearly every system and institution in the U.S. Even weather systems, blizzards are the ultimate destructive white power. But that isn't the only thing that's raising alarm bells. Many are concerned with federal relief workers saying that FEMA is moving away from helping the greatest number of people to focusing on those who they see as disadvantaged.
The shift that we're seeing right now is a shift in emergency management from utilitarian principles where everything is designed for the greatest good for the greatest amount of people to disaster equity. We have to look at policies and understand to what extent they have disadvantaged communities that had less assets, communities that had pre-existing vulnerabilities, in accessing disaster-related recovery supports.
I'd hate to see how they handle the trolley problem. Who will you save? I guess it depends on how the one person identifies. But with many parts of the country still looking like this, as yet another hurricane is on its way, did FEMA's focus on DEI make their disaster response worse? It can certainly be argued that both time and money could be spent on better things, like building a collection of exotic salt shakers. Or hey, just hear me out, spend the time and money on disaster relief efforts? But in all honesty, it's hard to say how much of an impact DEI has actually had on disaster relief efforts. Right now, people seem to be basing their criticisms on comments FEMA officials have made promoting equity, but no one's pointing to any plausible smoking gun proving that DEI specifically made things worse. It's like that old expression, never assign to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. And when it comes to government organizations, there's a lot of incompetence to go around. Now, some point out that the feds say there's no money left for the rest of the hurricane season after spending money on migrants. But it seems one of the main issues is FEMA just being too slow. But hey, FEMA was slow with Katrina's response in 2005. They have a reputation to keep up. So the problem might not be DEI, the problem might be government. Contrast FEMA's efforts with what American civilians have been able to accomplish, like volunteers with Savage Freedom's relief operation. Private helicopters teamed up for recovery. Veterans ferried aid. Influencers like Robbie Starbuck managed to give out Starlink receivers, help local police and fire departments get back online, and crowdsource essential materials within a moment's notice. And Elon Musk has been donating Starlink receivers and service to provide internet for victims. Now, what's ironic about that is that back in 2022, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, rescinded an agreement with SpaceX to install Starlink receivers in rural towns across the country. FCC Chair Jessica Rosenworcel justifies this by arguing that SpaceX failed to meet its burden needed to qualify for the money. She later claimed in a conference last month that SpaceX was a monopoly and that the US needs to invite more companies that can do what SpaceX does. You know, all those mom and pop space rocket companies that are out there. The effect of that was the FCC basically told rural America that they had to wait for tech like Starlink until there were enough competitors. Unfortunately, that didn't work out so well for rural towns hit by Hurricane Helene, so Musk is picking up some of the slack himself. Unsurprisingly, Musk took aim at the FCC, saying had the FCC not illegally revoked the SpaceX Starlink award, it would probably have saved lives in North Carolina. He also claimed the FCC was engaging in lawfare, or the strategic use of legal systems to achieve political goals. And it's not just Musk saying this. Even some in the government are on Musk's side. FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr believes that partisan politics is why the FCC revoked Starlink's internet reward. Under a Democratic president, at least 7 U.S. agencies have investigated Musk. Gee, I can't imagine why he'd accuse them of engaging in lawfare. There's enough suspicion about politicization that a U.S. House committee is probing the FCC's decision to deny Starlink nearly $900 million. Let me repeat that. People in the government think there might be too much politicization. Wow, I never thought those words would ever leave my mouth. Do you know how shady you have to be to make denying the richest man on the planet more money seem suspicious? But so maybe the diversity we really need to help Americans in times of need is the diversity that comes with free market capitalism. Thank you for watching America Uncovered. And before YouTube's algorithm sends you off to some random video, have you ever wondered if you're an NPC? Check out this latest video from my gaming channel about the Silent Hill 2 remake to find out. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.